Have you ever felt like you were stuck in a loop? You do everything right. You meditate, you visualize, you speak affirmations, you journal, you align your energy, you wake up with hope, but go to sleep with that same quiet disappointment. Months pass, and nothing really feels new. New intentions, old outcomes. You attract the same types of people. You face the same obstacles. You experience the same emotional patterns, no matter how hard you try to change them. And in the silence of your own thoughts, a question starts to rise. Why does nothing truly change? Let me tell you something most people will never say out loud. The problem is not you, not your mindset, not your intelligence, not your dedication. It's your frequency. There is an energetic broadcast flowing from you, not when you're trying, but when you're simply existing, when no one's watching, when you're not performing, when you're just being. That silent signal, that unconscious vibration, is what the quantum field is responding to. It doesn't care about your vision boards. It doesn't respond to how many hours you meditate or how often you repeat your mantras. It mirrors the truth of your energetic identity, the signal that lives beneath your practices, beneath your effort, beneath your words. And here's the hard truth. You cannot create a new reality while vibrating like your old self. You can dress up your habits. You can change your routines. But if your body is still operating from fear, if your nervous system is still wired for lack, if your inner dialogue still echoes doubt, then all you're doing is redecorating the same energetic space. You're not jumping, you're circling. But what if there's a way out? What if there's a way to stop repeating and start creating? Not through force, but through frequency. Not by effort, but by resonance. In this journey, I'm going to show you exactly how, and if something in you, even a small part, feels like you're ready to step into that new version of yourself, subscribe now. Not just for more videos, but because this one choice is a signal to the field that you're ready to shift. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to start. So hit that button and let's begin this quantum leap together. You've done the work. You've shown up. You've followed the steps every mentor, every book, every video said would change your life. And still, it feels like you're walking in circles. Moving, yes, but arriving nowhere new. There's a hidden frustration inside you, one you don't always admit. Because you don't want to seem negative, you don't want to seem ungrateful, but deep down you're wondering, why isn't this working for me? You journal your dreams. You speak affirmations with passion. You visualize your future self with clarity. You meditate with commitment. You align your chakras, raise your vibration, express gratitude every morning. But somehow, life keeps reflecting back the same struggles. Money still slips through your fingers. Relationships still repeat the same old patterns. Opportunities come close, then dissolve. You feel like you're in a cosmic loop, aware enough to know there's more, yet unable to touch it. And this is where the great illusion hides. The illusion that effort equals transformation, that spiritual labor guarantees quantum shift, that, if you do enough, you'll finally break through. But here's what no one told you. The quantum field does not respond to effort. It responds to energy. It does not reward you for how many hours you meditate. It does not react to the beauty of your vision board. It does not measure your progress by how many books you've read or how positive you sound on the outside. It mirrors your unconscious signal, not what you say, but what you emit. Not what you want, but what you expect. Not what you perform, but what you believe is safe to receive. The truth is, you're not stuck because you're not trying hard enough. You're stuck because you're energetically tethered to a past version of you, one that was trained to survive, not thrive. And that past version still feels safer in the familiar, even if the familiar is painful. You've been taught that healing is something you achieve by doing more. That transformation is the prize at the end of a perfect spiritual routine. But that's not how reality works at the quantum level. The field doesn't see what you're doing. It feels who you are. And who you are, in your quietest moments, when the candles are blown out, when no one is watching, is what tells the universe what to send you more of. So if your mornings begin with affirmations, but your evenings end in anxiety, if your words say abundance, but your body holds fear, if your rituals declare confidence, but your nervous system is still wired for rejection, then the field reflects the deeper truth. Not to punish you, not because you're broken, but because it's honest. That's what makes the quantum universe so precise. It gives you not what you deserve, but what you consistently broadcast. And here's the awakening. You don't need to work harder. You need to become more coherent, more aligned, more vibrationally true to the reality you say you want. Because when your words, your emotions, your body, and your inner self are all speaking the same language, the field listens. And when that happens, your effort becomes unnecessary. Your energy becomes enough. What if I told you that the universe is not ignoring you? It's listening deeply, precisely, mathematically. It's not that your dreams don't matter. It's that your energy is speaking louder than your voice, and the field understands only that language. You may think you're sending out clear signals. I want abundance. I'm ready for love. I deserve a new life. But if your energy, your vibration, your frequency, is still rooted in lack, in fear, in old emotional imprints, then that's what the field mirrors back. Because the quantum field doesn't understand English. It doesn't understand your words, your tone, your logic. It understands frequency. That's its only language. And frequency doesn't lie. It reflects what you feel in your bones, not what you wish with your lips. It echoes what your nervous system says is safe, not what your conscious mind thinks is possible. This is why your reality often feels like an echo of your past. Because your signal hasn't changed. Your broadcast is still tuned to the station of who you used to be. You're not manifesting from the energy of your desire. You're manifesting from the energy of your identity. So the field replies, this is the emotional state you dwell in most often. This is your internal norm. This is who you are being beneath the surface. Understood. I'll keep giving you more of that. And this is where people get frustrated. Because they confuse repetition with transformation. They say the right words. They follow the right steps. But their energy, the real signal, is still anchored in what they haven't yet healed. It's like trying to tune into a different radio station while refusing to move the dial. The signal never changes until the frequency does, and this is why effort alone cannot shift reality. You can't affirm your way out of a vibration your body refuses to let go of. You can't speak abundance while radiating scarcity. The quantum field sees beyond performance. It reflects truth. So what's the solution? You become the new frequency. Not pretend, not perform, but embody. You practice peace until your body no longer panics. You feel abundance before the money arrives. You love yourself before anyone else does. And the field responds, not because you begged it, but because you became undeniably aligned. Comment the number 99 if you know your energy has been speaking louder than your words, and you're ready to finally tune into your true signal. Let this be your declaration. Your shift begins now. Most people believe their reality is created by their thoughts, and while thoughts do carry power, they are not the source. They are the surface. The true architect of your reality, the silent engineer behind every manifestation, is your body, yes, your nervous system, your physiology, your emotional memory bank. This is the part of you that doesn't speak in words, but in reactions, in tension, in impulse, in fight, flight, freeze, or surrender. And this part of you is ancient. It was built to protect you, not to expand you. It's not concerned with your highest potential. It's concerned with survival. That means if success feels unfamiliar, your body resists it. If peace feels unsafe, your body rejects it. If love once led to pain, your body will brace against it, even if your mind begs for it. So when you try to create a new reality with affirmations and intentions, but your body still believes the old world is safer, it quietly pulls you back. It whispers fear. It triggers avoidance. It reactivates the loop, and this happens without a single conscious thought. Why? Because your body remembers. It remembers every heartbreak, every betrayal, every failure, every time you hoped and got hurt. Every time you reached for more and got less. And those memories, stored not as stories, but as sensations, form the baseline frequency of your life. This is what scientists call neural conditioning. Pathways formed over time by repeated emotional experiences. These pathways become the default settings of your energy, not because you chose them, but because you lived through them. So your body becomes your unconscious anchor. It holds you to the past, even when your mind wants the future. This is why you might start a new relationship, but end up feeling the same loneliness. Start a new job, but repeat the same scarcity. Set new goals, but fall into the same procrastination. The outer world shifts, but the inner signal doesn't, and the quantum field listens to the signal, not the story. Here's the awakening. If your nervous system doesn't feel safe in a new frequency, it will sabotage your access to it. Not to punish you, but to preserve what it believes is secure. And here's the real kicker. What your body considers secure is not what's joyful or abundant. It's what's familiar. So even if your current reality is filled with lack, chaos, or disappointment, if that's what your system knows, it will continue recreating it. Because it's known, and the known feels safer than the unknown, even if the unknown is beautiful. This is why true transformation begins in the body, not just in the mind. You have to train your nervous system to feel safe in new emotions, peace, joy, love, abundance. You must teach your body that these aren't threats, they're home. Only then does your frequency shift from survival to creation. Only then does the field begin to mirror a reality that reflects who you are becoming, not who you were conditioned to be. You've probably heard it 1,000 times. You are the creator of your reality. Your thoughts shape your world. If you believe it, you can become it. And yes, these are true. But they're only part of the truth, because here's what most people never say. You cannot create a new reality while holding tightly to your old identity. You can't upgrade your life while dragging along the outdated code that built the previous version of it. You can't expand into your potential while refusing to release the self-concepts that kept you small. You can't walk into your future while still defending your past. But this is what most people try to do. They intellectually want change. They emotionally crave expansion, but they remain energetically loyal to the frequency of their former self. So what happens? They repeat, not because they're lazy, not because they're incapable, but because they're still rooted in the familiar identity, the emotional tone, the thought patterns, the behaviors that match their current life. It's like trying to tune into a new frequency while still playing the same playlist. You say you want freedom, but your energy screams attachment. You say you're ready for more, but your choices reflect fear. You try to leap forward, but your self-image is still anchored to yesterday. This is why control becomes a trap. Because control, the need to force, to manage, to predict, is rooted in the very identity you're trying to evolve beyond. The more you try to control your transformation, the more you reinforce the self that fears the unknown. But here's the secret. Transformation is not about control. It's about surrendering to a higher coherence. It's about aligning so deeply with your future self emotionally, energetically, behaviorally, that the universe has no choice but to match you. You don't force a quantum leap. You become the frequency of the reality you desire. And when that frequency stabilizes inside you, when it becomes your new baseline, the external world begins to shift on its own, but not before. This is the mistake most people make. They try to act like the future version of themselves while emotionally reacting from the old one, and the field doesn't listen to your acting. It responds to your being. So the question isn't, how do I get there? It's, what part of me is still committed to staying here? Because as long as you keep reinforcing the old story, the narrative that says you're not enough, that you're always behind, that things never work out for you, then the field will continue to reflect that back. Not because you're broken, but because you haven't changed your energetic script, and that script isn't made of words. It's made of frequency. Here's the truth. You don't need more information. You don't need better tools. You don't need to control every step of the process. You need to let go of the version of you who's trying to control it all, because that version, the one who clings, doubts, calculates, resists, that's the version who created the current reality. And if you want to experience something new, you have to stop being the one who always receives the old. There's a moment in the transformation process that feels like chaos, but it's not. It's birth. It's the moment when your old self starts to dissolve and your new self begins to emerge. Not gradually, not gracefully, but often, all at once. It doesn't look the way people expect. It doesn't feel like clarity. It doesn't come wrapped in light and ease. In fact, it often feels like everything is falling apart. You feel confused, unstable, emotionally stretched between two versions of yourself. One part of you is ready to leap, to become, to evolve, to expand. The other part is clawing to stay grounded in what's familiar. And this is where many people quit. They misread the signs. They think the chaos means they're going backward. They think the discomfort means it's not working. They interpret the emotional pressure as failure, but it's not failure. It's friction. Friction between your old identity and the new frequency trying to emerge. Because here's the truth. No one tells you, before a reality jump, your oldest patterns will return. Stronger than ever, not because you're broken, but because the part of you that's dying is making its final stand. Old fears resurface. Old behaviors sneak back in. Old wounds ache like they did years ago. You attract familiar situations, toxic dynamics, financial setbacks, emotional triggers, as if the past is knocking on your door. But this isn't regression. It's recalibration. It's your system processing the energetic dissonance between who you've been and who you're becoming. And here's the paradox. When you feel most tempted to give up, that's often the moment you're closest to the jump. Why? Because transformation requires destabilization. It requires energy to break out of one vibrational state and enter another. And in that space between the two, there's a void, an emptiness, a sensation of not knowing who you are anymore. This void is terrifying because it's silent, uncertain, out of control. But it's also sacred. It's the space where you are no longer who you were, and not yet who you will be. This is what initiates call the in-between, the threshold, the passage, and how you respond to it defines everything. Do you retreat? Do you collapse back into your old emotional home? Do you let the fear convince you that you're not ready? Or do you breathe? Do you stay present, even in the discomfort? Do you recognize that this is not a breakdown, but a breakthrough? Here's how you'll know you're on the edge of a quantum leap. You feel stretched between two identities. Your nervous system feels overloaded, tired, anxious, restless. Your outer world starts testing you with familiar patterns. You experience sudden resistance, procrastination, or self-sabotage. You feel like quitting, even though everything inside you wants the change. These are not red flags. They are green lights in disguise. They mean the old frequency is losing its grip. This is when most people unconsciously sabotage the process. not because they're weak, but because they've mistaken discomfort for danger. But this discomfort isn't punishment. It's evidence. Evidence that your system is reorganizing, that your old self is dissolving, that the jump is already in motion. So what do? You don't resist it. You don't run from it. You breathe through it. You stay with yourself in the fire. You hold the line. Because just beyond that resistance is a version of you that doesn't need to fight anymore. A self that's already vibrating at the level of the reality you've been trying to manifest. And when you cross that threshold, not by force but by presence, the field responds, not because you forced the jump, but because you became it. If you've come this far, you've already started the shift. You've peeled back the illusions. You've seen how repetition is rooted in energy, not action. You've faced the war between your past and your potential, and now you stand in the space between worlds. This is where the jump begins. Not when everything looks different, but when you feel different, even if nothing has changed yet on the outside. Because here's the secret most people overlook. Quantum reality jumping doesn't require force. It requires frequency. You don't jump by pushing harder, fixing yourself, or trying to earn the life you want. You jump by becoming a vibrational match for it, quietly, consistently, internally. And that shift doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes with stillness. Sometimes it feels like nothing is happening at all. But in the quantum field, silence is often the loudest signal. You see, the field doesn't respond to your intensity. It doesn't reward your effort. It mirrors your coherence. And coherence is not a performance. It's alignment. When your thoughts, emotions, nervous system, and energy all speak the same truth, even for 10 seconds, you're already tuning into a new timeline. That's the jump. It doesn't require perfection. It doesn't need you to be free of doubt. It simply asks for a moment of realness, a moment where you feel, fully and honestly, the emotional signature of your future self. Peace without reason, gratitude before the outcome, confidence in the absence of proof, even for a few breaths, because the field doesn't calculate based on duration. It responds to resonance. So how do you make the jump? Start with the body. Train it to feel safe in what's unfamiliar. If joy feels unsafe, practice holding it for 30 seconds. If love feels foreign, practice receiving it, even from yourself. If abundance feels distant, breathe into it, not as a fantasy, but as a frequency. Not by imagining the thing, but by becoming the one who already has it. This isn't visualization, it's rehearsal. A somatic rehearsal of your new identity. And slowly, your system adapts. Your baseline changes. Your nervous system no longer flinches when peace arrives. You no longer self-sabotage when things begin to align. You begin to receive without guilt, without fear, without resistance. And as your signal stabilizes, reality bends. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped feeding the old pattern. You stopped needing proof. You stopped demanding evidence before belief. You stepped into the energy of the future. Now, and in that decision, that quiet, steady, internal shift, the quantum field begins to reorganize itself around you, not instantly. Not always visibly, but inevitably. Because frequency is a command, not to others, not to life, but to the field itself. Here's the paradox. The less you chase it, the faster it comes. The less you need to prove it, the more solid it becomes. The less noise you make, the louder your signal gets. So if you've been asking, how will I know when I've made the jump? Here's the answer. You'll stop asking, because you'll feel it. In your bones, in your breath, in the way you respond to what once triggered you. In the softness that replaces urgency. In the peace that arrives without condition. That's when you'll know. You didn't just talk about the new reality, you became it. There comes a moment on every path of transformation where the old world begins to dissolve. But the new one hasn't fully arrived. It's a space without clear answers, without signs, without the familiar anchors that once made you feel safe. This is the void phase, and it terrifies most people, because we're conditioned to equate stillness with failure. We've been trained to panic when we can't measure our progress, to see uncertainty as a sign that something's wrong. But in the quantum realm, the void isn't a mistake. It's not a delay. It's not a punishment. It's the womb of creation. It is the exact point where the old frequency loses its grip, and the new frequency begins to stabilize, quietly, invisibly, organically. You're no longer vibrating at your past, but your present doesn't yet reflect your future. So what do you feel? Suspended, weightless, emotionally unanchored, sometimes numb, sometimes restless, sometimes deeply still, in a way that feels foreign, even unbearable. And if you're not prepared for it, you'll interpret it as loss. You'll believe something went wrong. You'll start looking back, hoping to feel something again. That's the trap. That's where most people turn around, not because they failed, but because they couldn't endure the silence between signals. But here's what the ancient mystics, the quantum physicists, and the awakened creators all understand. The void is not empty. It is full of potential. It's where the quantum field reorganizes itself. It's where outdated attachments are stripped away. It's where your nervous system unhooks from the past. It's where your identity loosens just enough to allow something new to emerge. And that emergence doesn't happen through effort. It happens through trust. The void demands that you stop looking for confirmation, that you stop needing external proof, that you stop outsourcing your knowing to signs and synchronicities. Because in this space, the only guidance you have is your frequency. And if you can hold it, if you can walk through this dimension of silence while still anchored in your new self, you accelerate everything. You signal to the field. I am no longer ruled by appearances. I am no longer a prisoner of proof. I am who I say I am, even when reality hasn't caught up yet. This is where the field begins to respond in ways your logical mind could never predict. It's not linear, it's not neat, it's not comfortable, but it is sacred. Because when you make peace with the void, you stop reacting from fear and start creating from stillness. And from that stillness, the new world begins to shape itself around you, not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. So you've realigned your frequency. You've broken from the past. You've stood your ground in the void. And now, something happens. An opportunity appears. A connection is made. A job offer, a conversation, a new place, a random invitation. Something you didn't quite expect. It doesn't match your vision board. It doesn't look like the outcome you imagined. It's not the big dream you've been holding. But it feels like movement. It feels like something shifted, and in this moment you have a choice: dismiss it or honor it. Because here's the secret: the universe rarely gives you the final destination first. It gives you a bridge, a transitional experience, a stepping stone, a moment that isn't the end goal, but contains everything you need to get there. This is where most people get confused. They've been taught to only accept what looks like the ultimate manifestation. So they ignore what doesn't fit their picture. They reject jobs that feel too small. They turn down people who don't look like their soulmate. They avoid detours that feel beneath their potential. But what they don't realize is, the bridge is not the dream. It's the path to it. It's the job that teaches you the skill you'll need later. It's the connection that leads to the contact that opens the right door. It's the obstacle that trains you emotionally for the abundance you're about to receive. The quantum field is brilliantly intelligent. It's not just delivering results, it's orchestrating alignment. It's crafting your future through tiny adjustments in timing, awareness, relationships, and readiness. And sometimes, the fastest way to your desire is through something that looks completely unrelated. That's a bridge experience, and they often come wrapped in imperfection because they're not meant to be final. They're designed to stretch you, shape you, shift your posture toward your next reality. But here's the catch: if you reject the bridge, you delay the destination because you've told the field, unless it looks exactly how I want, I won't receive it. And the field responds by mirroring that resistance. But when you embrace the bridge, even without knowing exactly where it leads, you create movement. You collapse probabilities into pathways. You allow the field to do what it does best: weave synchronicities into transformation. That's when things start happening fast. You meet someone unexpectedly. An idea lands seemingly out of nowhere. A connection from 3 years ago reactivates. A small risk you took opens a massive door. Why? Because you said yes to the flow, not just to the outcome. You became flexible in form, but firm in frequency. That's quantum intelligence. So the next time something arises that feels too ordinary, look deeper. It might be the bridge, and if you're coherent enough to walk across it with gratitude, presence, and openness, you'll arrive at a reality that no technique, no manifestation ritual, and no amount of control could have created for you. Because the bridge knows the way even when you don't. In quantum physics, there's a well-documented truth. The act of observation changes the observed. It's called the observer effect, the principle that nothing truly exists in a defined state until it is witnessed, and that how you observe a phenomenon determines how it behaves. Now take that truth and apply it to your life. The way you look at your reality, your thoughts, your emotions, your interpretations, is not passive. It's not neutral. It's creative. Your awareness is shaping your world in real time. And here's the twist. Most people are observing their lives from the lens of their past self, from the stories of trauma, limitation, fear, and repetition. So even when new opportunities appear, they see them through an old filter. What if it doesn't work again? What if I mess it up like last time? What if I'm still not enough? And by observing their life from the lens of fear or unworthiness, they reinforce the very patterns they're trying to escape, because the observer becomes the creator. But what if you changed your point of view? What if you began to observe your life not as the old you, but from the perspective of your future self, the one who's already made the jump? What would shift? Everything. Because now you're no longer reacting to what you see, you're interpreting it through the lens of what you've already become. And that lens creates its own gravitational pull. You start noticing different details. You perceive possibility where there used to be fear. You feel momentum where you once saw stagnation. You act in alignment, not because the evidence supports it, but because you do. Here's the powerful difference. When you observe from the old self, you recreate the past. When you observe from the future self, you call it into the present. This isn't imagination. It's not denial. It's frequency precision. Because the way you see your current life affects the energetic code you send out. And the field always responds to your code, not your conditions. So what does this look like in practice? When your bank account looks low, instead of spiraling into scarcity, you pause, you breathe, you observe it from the future version of yourself, the one who already lives in overflow. And you ask, what is this showing me? How can I respond from coherence, not fear? When someone disappoints you, instead of collapsing into the old pattern of self-doubt, you center. You see it through the lens of your new identity. And you ask, what would my empowered self choose right now? What energy am I being invited to hold? These micro shifts, these quantum observations, begin to alter the architecture of your life. Because when you change the observer, you change the field, and slowly the world around you starts to reorganize. Not because the facts changed, but because you did. You are no longer reporting your reality. You're rewriting it with your perception, and that's the essence of quantum reality jumping, not reacting to what is, but responding from what will be until it becomes what is. You've walked through layers of truth that most people never even glimpse. You've looked beyond the surface. You've faced the illusion of effort. You've met the mirror of your nervous system. You've stood in the void. You've stepped onto bridges. You've observed from your future self. And now you stand in a space that is no longer theoretical. It's alive inside you. You are no longer who you were when this began. Not because you learned something new, but because something old has been released. A frequency, a memory, a loyalty to the past. A part of you that was still quietly rehearsing a smaller life. Gone, what remains is you, but not the you that reacts. Not the you that doubts. Not the you that tries to prove, to push, to force. What remains is the you that holds the signal, holds the stillness, holds the trust, not because evidence has arrived, but because you already have. This is where true quantum mastery begins, not in the moment the manifestation appears, but in the moment you no longer need it to appear in order to feel it. Because, here's the most sacred truth of all, the reality you want isn't something you pursue. It's something you remember. It already exists. It has always existed. But only now have you become the version of yourself who can receive it without collapsing. Only now have you shed enough of the old frequency to let the new one settle into your cells, not as a concept, but as a vibration, as an identity, as a new baseline. You are no longer reacting from the past. You are resonating with the future. And the field, the infinite intelligence that has been listening to your every breath, every thought, every frequency shift, is already responding. Even if you can't see it yet, even if it hasn't fully materialized, even if it still feels like nothing's happening, something is happening. Because you have happened, and once the signal changes, reality has no choice but to follow. So don't panic when the old world echoes back. Don't flinch when resistance flares up. Don't doubt when the timeline feels quiet. This is your test, not of worthiness, but of stability. Can you stay coherent when nothing outside of you is affirming it yet? Can you hold the vibration long enough for the field to rearrange itself in your image? If so, then the jump has already occurred. And here's the most beautiful part. You never really needed to jump, because the version of you who had everything you asked for was never somewhere else, never in the future, never behind a paywall of perfection. That version was always here, waiting for you to stop trying so hard and finally listen. Listen to the truth that echoed in your stillness, that whispered in your discomfort, that glowed in your resistance. You were never broken. You were never late. You were never separate from the field. You were simply rehearsing a reality you had outgrown until now. Now, you walk differently. Not with urgency, but with alignment. Not with fear, but with faith. Not with noise, but with presence. You've entered the new reality, not by chasing it, but by becoming it. So breathe. You don't need to figure out every next step. You don't need to ask for more signs. You just need to hold your signal. The rest will form around you. If this journey moved something in you, deeply, quietly, powerfully, subscribe now. Not just to this channel, but to your new frequency. To the version of you that doesn't beg the universe anymore but walks as if it already is, because it is, and you are ready. The cycle ends here. The jump begins now. Welcome home.